have got a beautiful lady with me today. She's all in red and she looks absolutely gorgeous. Her name is Azaria, and she is a sex and relationship coach. So I'm going to hand over to Azaria. Introduce yourself, Azaria.
Thank you so much for having me here on this podcast. I'm extremely excited to be here today. And I love that we're just both wearing red. Like it just already sets the mood for the conversation that we're going to have today. And as you mentioned, I am Azaria Menezes, AKA the Pussy Fairy. And I work with women, I work with couples, I work with anyone who's really just wanting to increase that pleasure, rekindle that sexual spark back into their life, whether it be solo or in a relationship, and just find back to feeling fully empowered, fully turned on, and fully excited about the intimacy and sex that they're having.
I think that's great, because I think I work with couples as well. And I think after that initial honeymoon period, then sex seems to die in relationships. People get bored and they have they lose that passion. So how do you do it? How do you actually reignite that?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think, with a lot of the honeymoon period, and it just feels so easy in the beginning, right? Like things just feel so effortless. Your hormones are raging, like especially in the early days. And so you're building all of that natural excitement with each other. And it's almost like you've got this in the beginning. It's so intense that you're building this like reserve excitement and turn on. And then eventually that fizzles out a little bit, right? And so then we fall into our routine. We get really comfortable with each other, which is also a great sign for our nervous systems, because this means like, okay, I can open up, I can be myself with this person, I can relax. It feels safe. It feels good, right? And then we just get like, life happens. We have our work schedules. We're busy. Maybe we have kids. Maybe there's just like stuff going on in the regular days. And so that's when it kind of starts to like quiet down and fizzle out. And the main thing here is what I see happening is like, number one, it is very normal for libido and excitement and turn on to have highs and lows, right? When we talk about sexual seasons in our relationships, we go through our sexuality, like our turn on, our libido, just like the seasons. And so I've learned this. This is a Taoist concept. I learned it from one of my teachers. And if you apply the seasons of, the year, winter, spring, summer, fall, to our sexuality, then it can make a little bit more sense why we sometimes have seasons where it's more quiet in our desire and our turn on. And you would call that a winter, right? And then maybe we have seasons where we're just like wanting it all the time. And we're like, yes, come here, honey. Like, I am excited for you, or even just like being excited for yourself, right? That would be a sexual summer. Spring is like when things are just starting to bubble up. You're noticing like a shift of like, okay, the desire is coming up again. And then fall is almost like a preparation for winter. And so if we apply this concept to our sexuality, it's so much more easy to understand, first of all, that society just glamorizes being in a sexual summer all the time. But that's not how our bodies work. Like, we are not machines. And that is such a high expectation to put on ourselves. Like, first of all, that's just crazy to think that we are going to be turned on all the time, and exactly turned on in the same time as our partner, with a different body, with a different, like, everything. Partners' libidos rarely match up. As
Absolutely.
A little side note here, like we're not endorsing that. Like, That is a very difficult thing to have matched up. And so when we start to just adopt this language of, ooh, you know what, honey, I'm in a winter, I'm feeling a little bit more quiet, right? And then we think about, what is it that I like in a sexual winter? How do I want to be touched in a sexual winter? Do I even want to have sex? Maybe I just want more like cuddles, naked cuddles or massages, or maybe I want you to tell me how much you love me, or any affirmations or anything that you would desire when you're feeling more of a quieter phase in your sexuality, right? And in the summer, you can just be like, hey, I'm in a summer. We can, in case you're on the same level as I am, I'm available to it, right? And so just developing a language around normalizing the different ups and downs of our sexual turn on and our excitement is so key, because there's nothing better than being in a winter together. Summer is overrated, but like when you're in a winter together, okay, honey, let's just like read together and let's snuggle. Okay. I love it. Yeah. So developing language, right, is incredibly important. And then number two, how do we rekindle that spark, is taking accountability for your own sexuality. I think so much of what we do is we tend to like give our power away when it comes to taking accountability in our sexuality. And it tends to get really easy to blame the other person. Like, why aren't you doing those things anymore that you used to? Or like, why aren't you just coming up behind me and grabbing me? Right. And it happens that we just tend to give our sexual power and our sexual excitement, and we place it onto our partner, or we place it onto the situation or the season of our life. And really feeling empowered in the bedroom and feeling liberated in the bedroom is when you recognize that, wait a minute, I'm actually the one in charge of my pleasure. And wait a minute, I'm the one that can actually shift things around, and I get to connect with my voice and share what it is that I want, and really take charge of what I do want in the bedroom, right? Because so much of the time it's like, we either like to just place our power into our partners, and they're the ones that give us all the pleasure, and like, ooh, like I love the orgasms that they give me, right? But realistically, you're the one experiencing your body, and your pleasure is yours first and foremost. So when we take back that power and we get back in the driver's seat of our sexuality, right? And we get out of the passenger seat, it can really shift how we feel about sex, because a lot of the times it just happens that it's a passive thing. Eventually it's like, oh yeah, we haven't had sex in a while, so like let's just check off that thing on the to-do list, and then we'll go back to Netflix and chill, like, you know what I mean? So
yeah,
like,
absolutely.
how do I take charge of this moment? How do I make it juicy?
Yeah. And I'm just thinking about this because the biggest thing that I find is that, especially the British, I mean, you're in Canada, I don't know whether it's any different, but the Brits don't like talking about sex, and they don't like asking for what they enjoy, or telling their partner, oh, that felt good, can you do more of that? Or that didn't feel so good. That just doesn't enter into conversation. So I don't know what it's like, what your experience is, but that's what I hear so often. Oh no, we can't talk about sex. Oh no.
Yeah. Oh, I know. You know what? There's still a big taboo around it, I think, even just in society. And what we see in the media is, first of all, not an actual reality of what happens in the bedroom. And so much of the time, what we see is like heterosexual sex, and then the woman is coming in 1 second after like 2 seconds of penetration, and it's amazing. And then at home, we're just all wondering, like, what is wrong with me that I'm not able to achieve that? Right? Like the standards that the media sets is crazy. And so then it becomes really difficult to talk about it, because you feel like, oh, am I not normal, or is something wrong with me? And so I think there is sometimes a little bit of a shame piece attached to that. And also when we share that we don't like something, sometimes it can feel like we're rejecting our partners. And it's really hard to talk about that and to share something that like, oh, honey, I didn't really like that, or that didn't feel good. Like of course we care and love about everything about our partners, and we don't want to put them in a place that makes them feel rejected, right? But if we just change the language around that and make it more of an invitation and a curiosity, that can really shift things around. So like, what would it feel like if you tried a little bit to the left? I'm curious if we could try this, right? So it's more of an invitation rather than like, oh, that you're doing something wrong, right? And when we use invitational language, and when we actually take time to explore with our partners, like other than having sex, take time to set aside 20 minutes in whatever time you have during the week or during the month and purely use it as an exploration time. Do we like this touch? Try this new technique. Let's see if we can improve this, right? Like we don't set a lot of time to actually explore and get really curious what feels good and what doesn't and how we can shift things. We just go into sex, we go into the routine that we always have, grab the loop, slather it on, and like you do me, I do you, then we do this, then it's done, and we go to bed, and right?
I mean, even just saying that, it sounds so boring. One of the best things I think I heard, it was a sex therapist who said this, is, the question is, when do you start foreplay? And they responded with, immediately after the last orgasm. And I think that is so true, because we just forget it. We forget that foreplay isn't just about sex. It is about that connection. It is about being connected with each other and paying each other attention.
Yeah, it starts out of the bedroom. Absolutely. Yeah. So incredibly important to also understand what it is that turns your partner on, right? And it's almost like the love languages, there's like the 5 love languages, but there's also like something to do with like how you get aroused and what things really excite you, and doing more of those things and understanding what turns your partner on and understanding like the language that gets them excited. It's almost like you can make it like a little game, right? And it is fun to engage in that like flirtiness and that fun, because it's an element that we often just leave out and don't even attach to foreplay, right? Like anything that happens out of the bedroom is not considered foreplay, but really like it starts, as you said, outside, and not just like 5 minutes before sex. And then we're expecting our bodies to be wet and ready for penetration. And like that is not going to work well.
No, and I think that is the danger, because as you say, we see that media talking about as though, oh, you just turn this switch and you're immediately aroused and that's it.
Yeah.
But it's certainly not so easy for women. Men, I think they can get aroused more quickly.
But I still think it's more pressure to put on like that.
Yeah, you've got to perform, and it's not about performing, is it?
Absolutely not. And I think, even if you have a pussy and you're thinking about how much time do I need to really be ready for penetration, it can take up to 40 minutes for the body to actually be ready for full penetration, for the juices to get flowing, for everything to get nice and cushiony and really just ready for it. It can take up to 40 minutes. I don't know about you, but like a lot of people by that time, we're sleeping after it's done. We're sleeping. We're already in La La Land. So it's interesting to just, if your listeners are hearing this, to just have that number in your head, like, wow, it actually takes this long from a like physiological process for my body to be ready and open for penetration.
And I also think it doesn't have to be penetration.
It doesn't.
The other myth, isn't it?
Absolutely not. Yeah.
And I think that puts so much pressure on men, especially because women can be aroused in so many ways, but for a man, he has only one tool, one kind of, that's it. And if that's not functioning, then that's a lot harder for a man, isn't it? Whereas women, I think, we have, because of the way we're built, we don't need that penetration with a penis.
Absolutely. And there's honestly, there's so many other juicy erogenous zones that are just left with crickets. And we're leaving the most exciting part out. I mean, just like a little side note, if you're a penis owner and you have a prostate, like there's a whole magical world of orgasms waiting for you that may even feel even more powerful than the orgasm you're experiencing with your penis. So I'm just going to leave that out there for anyone listening. And, you know, to think about, we always talk about the pressures of women experiencing like this pressure of needing to perform and needing to be turned on enough. And I think there isn't a lot of conversation about the pressures that men experience as well, because there is so much pressure to perform, to know what to do, and to be like the best lover, and to know exactly what strokes to use and where's the clitoris, right? And all of those things. And it's like, there's a lot of pressure on everyone almost to this thing like be amazing. And in reality, when we just strip down our armor and figure out like, hey, how can we both feel pleasure in a way that feels really good for us? It just brings so much more relaxation and less pressure. And I think that the idea even that you have to have a hard penis to have sex and you have to have a hard penis to enjoy yourself is absolutely, like, let's just throw that out the window, because that is absolutely not accurate. And there's so many juicy things you can do, even with a soft penis. And it's just, there needs to be more empowerment, especially for men as well. And really just developing more understanding around bodies and sex, what that means. Like, sex doesn't always mean penetrative sex. It can mean so many other amazing things.
Absolutely.
And so you might be having more sex than you think already.
I'm so with you. And I just think there is that pressure, you know, on the man, and then on the woman as well. She feels that she can't arouse her partner, and the other way around. And as you say, the media just add to it. And then everybody feels that they failed, and then, I can't be bothered, and off we go. And then that just is. And it's such a shame, because sex is just amazing.
Oh my gosh.
In all its forms. And so many people are missing out, and they don't need to.
Yeah, absolutely.
What is one thing that, you know, one tip that people can take away with themselves today?
Yes. So one tip that really you can take away for your own pleasure is just thinking about, how can I get into the driver's seat of my pleasure? How can I really take charge of how I'm showing up to sex? And how can I really empower myself to be more in my pleasure, in my sexual enjoyment, and really just like hit the gas on the sexual driver's seat that you're sitting in, because there is so much to explore. And really just understanding like, okay, how can I find more pleasure today, right? If you're thinking about, maybe we're going to have sex and maybe I'm not even in the mood, but just thinking about what would feel really, really good for my body, and how could I be in more pleasure? And then just suggest that, right? So like finding ways to be more in pleasure rather than placing a goal on your sex life or a goal on the sex or intimacy that you're having can really shift things so much.
That's really great advice. It's really great. Thank you. Thank you so much, Azaria. What is one easy way that people can get in touch with you? I'll put all your details in the show notes, but one easy way.
Yeah, absolutely. So you can come and find me on my Instagram, because that's usually where I hang out. So my Instagram handle is azaria.menezes, or you can just type in the Pussy Fairy, and you also might be able to pull up my Instagram as well.
Yeah, I think that's a lovely title, to call yourself the Pussy Fairy. I think I love it. I remember you telling that when we first met, and I love it. Yeah, and I follow you on Instagram, and there's some great stuff on there. Thank you so much today, Azaria, for talking to me. I think there's some great stuff out there. Let's keep this conversation going about sex. We just need to keep talking about it and noticing how much we connect in that way, and not seeing it as a chore, because it's messy.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me here. I loved our conversation today.
Yeah, me too. Thank you.